Hey there, how's it going? This is Dunnett from the band Power Slave, the Iron Maiden experience based in Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA. In this video, I'm going to show you how to play like this guy, Dave Murray of Iron Maiden. But first, this video is brought to you by the Tao of Guitar, where you learn how to play, not just what to play. So having been in Power Slave now for several years, I have a lot of insight into the style of Dave Murray, and I want to share some things I picked up with you. And I'm also going to show you in this video a couple common mistakes I see people make when they're playing Iron Maiden songs in general. But first, a little bit of background. When I first got Power Slave together with the singer and bass player, it was kind of the three of us, we decided to kind of rehearse one guitar because we were having trouble finding another guitar player. And so I wasn't really sure whether I was going to be Dave Murray or Adrian Smith, but one thing I did want is for both guitar players to be exclusively one or the other. So pretty much 99% of what I do is Dave Murray, 99% of what the other guy does is Adrian Smith. And the irony is that technically and stylistically, I probably play quite a bit more like Adrian Smith than I do Dave Murray. So when we first started rehearsing, I would just kind of do whichever part, but then we got another guitar player who only had double coil pickups, humbuckers, in his guitars. So it was kind of pretty obvious, since I had the Strat, that I was going to be Dave Murray. In hindsight, I'm glad it turned out that way because I really like how Dave Murray plays. I like how Adrian Smith plays as well, and like I said, stylistically, my playing was more similar to his, but it's been quite a challenge and a neat little adventure learning to play like Dave Murray, and I'm glad I've taken this route. So one thing in particular that stands out about Dave Murray's playing style is he takes a very legato approach. Now, if you don't know what legato means, it's a musical term that just basically means smooth and flowing. It doesn't mean a lot of attack. In other words, you're not doing a lot of picking. Usually more hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides. So that's what legato is. Just less attack on the notes, more of a fluid style, and that definitely categorizes Dave Murray's style quite a bit. So I'm going to show you some of his favorite licks that he tends to use and reuse, and also let you know what songs they appear in, so you have a reference for that. Okay, so let's dive in. As I mentioned, he tends to do a lot more legato style, so there's going to be a lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs. And one thing he likes a lot, obviously, is the pentatonic scale, very common in rock music. And if you don't know it, I'm going to go ahead and play it for you so you have a reference here. But most guitar players usually know the minor pentatonic scale, and that's what he bases a lot of things out of. So if we're doing an A minor, it's going to look like this. Now up here you can use your pinky too. I'm not going to get in a whole lot about just playing and technique in general, but I like to use the third finger because, like I said, he does a lot of hammer-on and pull-offs. So that's kind of how his solo in the Trooper starts off. He also uses it in Where Eagles Dare in the key of E minor instead of A minor, so I'm going to be doing in this position starting on the E. Which also appears in Run to the Hills, although there he kind of goes up. And you'll notice I threw in a different note, not in the scale here, the C sharp. That's what he does there. He also does that a little bit in Hallowed Be Thy Name. So you'll hear a lot of those hammer-ons and pull-offs in the minor pentatonic scale. So one thing you can do if you're having a little trouble getting used to that is just take that minor pentatonic scale and instead of picking each note, just try hammering on as you go up and pull off as you come back down. And then you can try doing doubles. You know, doubles, triples, quadruples, and so on. So that'll kind of build up your fluidity with the hammer-ons and pull-offs like that. So again, that's a common thing he does in a lot of his guitar solos. Another way that he approaches hammer-ons and pull-offs a lot is instead of going like through a minor pentatonic scale across the strings, he'll do a particular scale in more of a linear fashion. So he might... And it might be multiples, it might just be... things like that. He does it in Number of the Beast, although it's in a different key. So again, it was just going down the D minor scale with hammer-ons and pull-offs there. He does it in E minor and Die With Your Boots On, and so on. So Again, in this video, I'm not trying to teach you the specific solos that he's doing. There's plenty of other resources on YouTube for that. I'm just trying to show you some licks and tricks into the style of Dave Murray. So another one that he does a lot, I teach to my guitar students, I call MVL, Most Valuable Lick, because everybody and their grandmother has done this. And again, it's kind of based out of the minor pentatonic scale. So the notes would be, if I'm in E minor, and a lot of times the way it's done is you play this note first, then this one, and then you do this as a pull-off. So that's very, very common, and you could also start with the pull-off. But he tends to start with this note, which is what I tend to do anyway, and what most players I found do. And, you know, again, if you're in a different key like A minor, you might do it there. In Flight of Icarus, he does it in F sharp minor. And one thing he does sometimes with this lick is, like in Flight of Icarus, he'll kind of do different variations where it's almost like a random thing where you're playing this, and then sometimes you just do this part. He also does this in Die With Your Boots On, but it looks a little different because we're going to take this same lick, okay, and we're going to kind of jump it down to here. But you notice the notes here are, I'm at the 7th fret on the G string, so that's a D, then E, and pulling off the G back to the E. Okay, but I'm going to move it up an octave, and instead of going way, way up here, I'm going to jump to these strings here, so I'm still playing the same notes. D, E, G, pull off the E. And again, he kind of randomizes a little bit. We're adding that little trill in there. So again, it still has that legato flow to it, and it's still out of the minor pentatonic scale. So that seems to be a common thing with Dave Murray's playing style. Another one that he does a lot that I found is kind of out of like a minor bar chord shape or the minor scale. So we were talking about the minor pentatonic scale. This is the minor diatonic scale, and don't worry so much about the terms. Again, that's a little beyond the scope of this video, but it's coming out of like a bar chord shape for, like, let's say an E minor chord. So if I look at this, there are my notes, which you'll find in Hallowed Be Thy Name. You'll find also in the slow section of Hallowed Be Thy Name. And the Trooper. So a lot of things tend to be out of this minor scale pattern. Okay, so the minor scale here is E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, back up to E. Okay, so. And you could also do it in the lower octave. E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, and that links you into E here. And again, I'm not trying to get into a lot of theory and other things about guitar playing, but I just want to give you a little foundation into where this is coming from. So that's also in Hallowed Be Thy Name. So you can see it's kind of right out of that shape. So again, a way you could do this is practice that scale up and down. And throw in this note too, because this is D, same note that's here, an octave lower. So that's kind of a good way to practice it and get comfortable with it. Because one thing he will do a lot is, so I'm stretching up to the higher note here. Now there I did an E minor, but in Ace is high, he does an A minor, so it's going to be up here. So what I did was, so again, you get those little hammer-ons in there. So there's some hammer-ons and pull-offs. Again, that legato style. In the Clairvoyant, he does it in C sharp minor, so it's going to be up here. So again, that's right out of that scale. Okay, so again, you can see that legato-ness that's going on. A lot of hammer-ons and pull-offs, a lot of minor scales, whether it's minor pentatonic or diatonic or even harmonic minor like Hallowed Be Thy Name. But again, I'm not getting into all that right now. But you know, that minor sound is obviously very prevalent in metal, and especially Iron Maiden. So that gives you a little bit of insight as to both the scales that he uses, but more so just how he approaches those with those hammer-ons and pull-offs. Very, very, again, legato-like, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, anything that has that fluidness to it. But he's also a pretty quick picker too. Okay, so now I'm going to point out just a couple of common mistakes I see when people play Iron Maiden songs. I'm going to give you 3 here that I see quite a bit. The first one is the intro to Wasted Years. Full disclaimer, that's an Adrian Smith part. I do not play it. I had learned it when we originally put the band together just so I could play the intro as we rehearsed it, but I typically do not do that. But the mistake I see people make is they just pick that high E string as fast as they can. They think it's just tremolo picking, where you're just kind of picking this as quick as you can and throwing these other notes, just trying to make them fit. And that is not correct. There's definitely a distinct groove to it. If you listen really closely, it has like a dent. So again, forgive me, but something like this. Okay, so again, I don't play that part, so that's not exactly 100% correct, but you can at least kind of hear the syncopation and the groove in there. It's not just playing that E string as fast as you can, and again, just throwing those notes in and hope you get them on the right beat. It's not really how it's done. Okay, next one I see a lot is this little variation on a power chord. It's very common in rock, especially, where you'll take like a power chord and move the root note, which is this, down a half step. So you'll see that in, you know, Run to the Hills. Okay, but also in Flight of Icarus, where they do that. Okay, so again, what I see a lot of people do is they'll do a power chord and they slide the whole thing back a half step. And that's not what they're doing. And some people do it this way, and this is perfectly okay. So, to clear my third finger out of the way, I'm basically playing the power chord like this with my second and fourth finger, which is a little odd. You normally wouldn't do that, but for this particular riff, it works, but I like to. So that's something you see a lot in their songs that they tend to do. As a matter of fact, a lot of times if it sounds like they're just moving that power chord down a half step, a lot of times it's not what they're doing. They're doing this little trick where you just move the root note down a half step. Not all the time, because there are some songs where they do move the entire chord down a half step. But a lot of times it's going to be this, where you're keeping the fifth here the same and you're just moving that root note down. So that's another common thing that I see people do incorrectly in a lot of Iron Maiden songs. And last one, kind of more of a deeper track, Children of the Damned. And the reason I point this out is because I've seen several people on YouTube do instructional videos on how to play the song. A lot of times they get this little part wrong. I'm not trying to knock anybody, you know, great job on the rest of what they do, but this is a common one that I found that people tend to play incorrectly. When you're doing the main power chord riff in Children of the Damned, okay, so on this, that's really what he's doing. So the A a couple times, then the A flat, G, and E. But I see people all the time going, and throwing in the G and the F sharp, because that's normally in the key of E minor. But if you listen very closely and you do this, you'll hear that that is actually much more spot on than doing, which I see a lot of people teach it that way. So I hope this helps you out a little bit and gives you some insight into the style of Dave Murray. Again, it's been quite a thrill and an honor having to learn all of these parts and guitar solos pretty much note for note to try to nail it and give me some insight in it. So I wanted to share that with you. And if you did like it, please hit the thumbs up so that everyone knows you liked it. And if you know someone that this will help also, please feel free to share it with them. Give them a chance to learn to play like Dave Murray as well. And if you like Iron Maiden like I do, please check out some of our other videos from my band Power Slave, the Iron Maiden experience, in this playlist. So till next time, up the irons, and I'll see you in the next video.
Tell me why.